Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free. You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
We're turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church on Dark Matter Radio.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church Fade to Black.
Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Space boy. All right. Fade to Black is back. Friday night. Friday the 13th. Ooh. Kind of spooky. Think about that. All right, look, I'm going to say it right now before we even get this show cracking. I'm going to say it right now. Crackheads? Really? Right before airtime tonight. It's like the last tweet that came in from Brad Kelly. He says, oh my God, we're all crackheads. Oh, that was good. And I didn't say it. I don't know where that came from. But Brad, that was good. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Friday night, we are here. We're back. That's right. Today is Friday the 13th, June 13th. 155 days into the new year. As always, we are live right now from the JP Motorsports Studios right here in sunny Burbank, California. I'd like to welcome everybody listening around the world, around the country. Hither and thither, to and fro. That's right. Back and forth. North and south, east and west, up and down, front to back. Everywhere. I'm humbled. Humbled the family that we have built. Welcome, everybody. Anybody new tonight? Just just kick back and check it out. It's all good. Big proud salute to the proud men and women in uniform all around the world fighting the good fight for us. Without them, there is no me, there is no you, there's no freedom of speech. This station doesn't exist, and you couldn't hear me right now, and that is important. You need to think about that. For KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. All right, let's go. Let's get this one cracking. I'm watching the tweet box, by the way. Today, actor, comedian Tim Allen is 61 years old. He starred in one of the great sci-fi films of all time. That's right, Galaxy Quest. Some call it a comedy. I call it spot on. I don't laugh when I watch that movie. I'm like, you know what? When and if it goes down, it's probably going to go down just like this. Great movie. Also today, Malcolm McDowell, 71 years old. And to me, he played one of the most disturbing roles in all of cinema in Kubrick's 71 film, A Clockwork Orange, which was based on a sci-fi novel by Anthony Burgess and Burgess. And I couldn't let that go. And it's funny when people comment on YouTube when they listen to past shows and they listen to these, they don't realize that, well, they don't realize like five things. They don't realize that what they're listening to is a recording, an archive of a radio program. They think it's some kind of podcast. And I don't even know how to do a podcast or what that kind of stuff is based on and what people listen. I don't know. But they don't realize that. And they're like, man, why is he doing? Why does he announce the day of the year? Why does he announce the studio and the net? What is this? They don't realize that they're listening to a live program. Why does he do birth dates? You know why? Because these people mean something to me. And I hope that after I do something like this every single night with somebody's birthday or some musician, that you would turn around and scratch your head and go, hey, man, wow, I haven't seen Galaxy Quest in a long time. I'm going to go check it out. I haven't seen Clockwork Orange in a while. I'm going to go check that out. Cool idea. Because it's my personality. It's my twisted thoughts. And that's what it's about. That's it. So I hope that in 2 weeks when somebody's listening to this, that maybe they'll get the message. All right. Enough of that. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Right now, follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio and hashtag DMRadioNet. I announce that every single night. And the audience builds and builds and builds. But for everybody that's there right now, you get it. But go hang out at JChurchRadio. Follow us on Twitter and hashtag DMRadioNet. Go hang out with all the regulars, the crackheads. Oh, that was just great. Follow, like, and subscribe. We do. Most of the announcements happen over on Facebook first, and then we'll get stuff up on the website, and YouTube follows that. But, Facebook is the place where we do all of the quickest stuff. And then, of course, Twitter. And Facebook is, what is it? It's Jimmy Church Radio, I think. I can't remember if it's KJCR. I just click on the stuff. So anyway, tonight, open lines. Peter Robbins, Larry Warren, they have asked for open lines tonight. So there you go. All right. We will be opening the lines up. 323-825-5045. Skype is fade2black14. Email throughout the show. Got emails lined up already. Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. Simple enough to do. If you want to go over to the website, you can also do it direct through there, but everything does go through the producers. All right. And with that, contact in the desert. JimmyChurchRadio.com. Go and click right now. Contact in the desert. There's the banner. Win a pass to Contact in the Desert. It's a 4-day pass, $400 pass. We've given away 5. Next Friday, 5 more will be announced next Friday. Okay, so go. Contact in the Desert. I say it. It's like the coolest thing. We, Fade to Black, Dark Matter Radio, we are going to broadcast Friday night, August 8th, from Joshua Tree, from Contact in the Desert. Everybody that's going to be there is going to be there. Tsoukalos, Wilcock, Greer, Von Daniken, Tellinger, Jim Mars, Nick Pope, Jason Martell, John Anthony West, and I hope he's wearing his hat. Richard Dolan, Linda Moulton Howe. They are going to be walking around, hanging out, doing things. So if you win, you will jump on the show with us. Come hang out. Come and meet some people. Ask some questions. Do what you've always wanted to do. I really hope you win. All right? It's going to be a great evening. The past winners that we announced last week, Rick Sinnott. I got a Facebook from Rick tonight. Actually, Rick, the picture that you sent us is just been posted over at jimmychurchradio.com. I will get to that in just a second. Thank you for that, by the way. I've been waiting for that for 40 years, and Rick sent it in. Brad Beining, Arturo Portillo, Shakira Blue Sun, quite possibly the coolest name of all the winners. Well, Walter Lewis isn't bad, but Shakira Blue Sun. Can't wait to meet Shakira, see what she's about. And so, yeah, we're going to announce 5 more next week, all right? Do keep the guest requests coming. One of our guests next Friday came directly from you. So just so you know, next week's going to be really crazy. We'll announce that on Monday. Got to keep that other show on their toes, and you know what that's all about. So, yeah, keep the guest requests coming. Over at jimmychurchradio.com. Oh, let me get to the email first. Got a couple of cool ones. This one came in from Roger. It says, "Hi, I just visited the John Teeter Facebook page, and it looks like crap to me." Somebody probably created this nonsense to make Teeter look bad. We've been in contact with a few Teeters over the last 24 hours. Pretty crazy show last night with Larry and Freeman. Again, thank you both. Freeman was just absolutely amazing. And he texted me first thing this morning, said he slept in late, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him today. But thank you, Freeman. That was really cool. And Larry Haber said last night that John Teeter is either going to be back. This is according to Teeter's mom, Kay, July or November of this year, and he's going to do it on this show. Now, how cool is that? We'll see. We'll see. But that's going to be a show for the ages. That'll be some real radio. But thanks, Larry. Last night that was really great. And again, Freeman, amazing show. And let me jump forward a little bit. Another email that came in right before the show. I just wanted to get this in. This was from Ben Miller. Friday the 13th and a full moon could get wild. Have your Prozac ready. And, it's the honeymoon tonight, too, by the way. Posted on Facebook, and I think this was yesterday, and it got to me. I did eventually see it. And it was from Rick Sinnott, one of the winners of Contact in the Desert. It's kind of funny, Rick. You win the contest, and now you hang out on the show and you're tweeting and all that. But Rick's an exciting guy. So anyway, he sent this picture in, and I had to post it. So it's over at jimmychurchradio.com. Go over right now, and it's let me scroll down. Let me see where it is. It is right there. It is Church Rant. Okay. So it's below the Dyatlov Pass Gallery. Just scroll down next to Mirage Men on the right, Church Rant. And there it is. What appears to be the only picture of swamp gas. Rick says, I found one picture of actual swamp gas. It looks like it might be the size of a soccer ball. Easily confused with a 300-foot mothership. Now, go look at this picture. Now, I wish it was bigger, but this is what Rick sent us. And I got to say, it's the first time I've ever seen swamp gas. And, yeah, you're right. That does look like could be confused for anything extraterrestrial. Any interstellar starcraft. That's what you're looking at here. You've got to go look at this picture. It's over at jimmychurchradio.com, Church Rant. It's an actual picture of swamp gas. And this is what J. Allen Hynek in Project Blue Book tried to push down our throats for decades. There it is, a picture of swamp gas. Go and check it out right now. I'll remind you halfway through the show. But somebody is going to be listening to the show that is going to miss this. It's pretty fabulous. And so that's that. Where are we in things? Okay. You know what? Let's do this. Let's do what we should do right now. Let's take our break. Let's pay the bills. I'll be back with the news right after this. And with that, this is Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses, the Friday edition. Tonight, Larry Warren live from the UK, hopefully. Peter Robbins live from New York. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio, hashtag DMRadioNet, people. Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. That's what you got to do. Pierce the veil of the producers. Make it good. And we will be taking your live calls with Peter Robbins all night. All right? With that, don't touch that mouse. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National tax experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil three-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black, Friday the 13th. Honeymoon. Reading a couple of these tweets. And about what happened last night on Twitter, I have no idea what that was all about. That attempted censoring. I don't know. That was kind of weird. But anyway, how about Grant Cameron as a guest? Talked to Grant like 3 times. He's always busy. Love to have him on. I really would. And we've talked about it. He's just like, man, I'm busy. I'm working on this. I'm working on that. And put it off. Maybe the end of the summer. So those are his words, not mine. But I would love to get Grant on the show. I think he's a real well-spoken guy. Let's see. Thomas Bearden, Sterling Allen, Jean-Louis Naudin. Wow. How about Art Bell? Might we expect Master Sergeant J.D. Chandel to ever make it? Wow. That was left field, but that was good. I'm just reading Airman Edward Cabansag. Okay. Those are good. I'm with you. All right, let's get to the news. Trending right now on CNN. Right now, Iraq, can you believe it? Solar storms, Virgin Galactic. Oh, by the way, I have a bunch of pictures of myself with that were taken by. Well, it doesn't matter. Out at the Mojave Airport with Spaceship One, taken a few years ago, and I will dig those up and post them. They are really cool. And it was at a press thing out there. But I was allowed to go on the tarmac by myself, with Richard Branson taking the pictures. And there's some pictures of myself and Branson that somebody else took, and then Branson taking the pictures of me and another friend. And they're really, really, really cool. Every angle on that thing. And on the tarmac. The rest of the press was inside. We got to do it by ourselves outside with him and his crew. Very cool. I will dig those up and post them. But Virgin Galactic revealed Spaceship Two today. Let's see what else is trending. Harrison Ford, Father's Day, Chris Christie, Russian bombers, no big deal, World Cup. But what's missing? That's right, MH370. And I'm not going to let this go. I'm just not going to let this go. I will embarrass CNN into doing something. It's just a complete joke. What else do we have here? Oh, I saw this a few days ago, and it just reminded me of Malibu, the deep underwater base. From the New Scientist, they posted this article about a wearable submarine. And Now, it's over at newscientist.com. You can go check this out. But it's the most advanced robotic diving suit. It can go 300 meters, 1,500 feet under the water. That would kiss the top of the Malibu deep underwater base. It's pretty cool. Now, what are they going to use this for? The first that they've gotten done with the sea trials, and they've been testing it under New York City to check the water treatment plants. And I just went, ugh, that's pretty gnarly. But they have been testing. It's now ready to go, and they are going to go look for another Antikythera mechanism. Now, I don't know, it was about 100 years ago when they pulled up the first one. We finally figured out what it is, and now it looks like it was Archimedes that built it, the world's oldest computer. Pretty cool. And Archimedes was living in Syracuse in Sicily at the time, 212 BC. I don't know, who do you call the people that live in Syracuse? Syracusans, I guess. Got invaded, and the Romans cracked Sicily. And with that, the Archimedes mechanism ended up on a boat. Boat got sunk right off of the island of Antikythera. And these sponge divers found it, brought it up, and there you go. Now, I think there are suspicions right now that there's another one. Now, this is where I scratch my head, and this is Jimmy getting demented. The original one was found by a sponge diver 100 years ago. Why haven't we been back? A sponge diver found it. Now, why do we need the deepest submarine suit to go back? How come we haven't? I don't know. I don't get this. And reading the article, I'm excited, and I hope they suspect a second one being down there. Okay, great. Let's go find it. But how come we haven't been back? And why does it take a submersible like this to go back when the first guy did it wearing his underwear? Think about that for a second. All right, I'm twisted. I get it, but I hope they go find something. They think that Antikythera 2 is there, part 2. All right. Now, tonight is the honeymoon. No human has seen tonight's full honeymoon in 100 years. I read the other day the world's oldest human had just passed, 111 years old. So they were 11 years old. He, or was it a she? The last time this happened. Now, right past 12:11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight, 12:11 a.m. will be the first full honeymoon on Friday the 13th in 100 years. It's going to appear golden and huge in the skies. This is the deal. It's this full moon coincides with its perigee when it is closest to Earth during its orbit. So it's going to appear to be like super huge. And then you pair that with the June summer solstice when the sun cuts its highest path in the sky. And you combine that with a little bit of pollution, and I'm not making this up, and it's all going to amount to this huge honeymoon in the sky going on tonight. Going to be very cool, and I'm pretty excited about that. All right. Now, I want everybody to do this one more time. Now that we probably got most of the audience listening in, I want everybody to do me this favor. Go over to jimmychurchradio.com, scroll down right now, and look at that picture of swamp gas. I have waited my entire life for this photograph. For the first time, you can look at swamp gas. And I got to have everybody look at this. I'm just as shocked as everybody else. There it is. There's your picture of swamp gas. How in the world well, first off, it was made up. That was just a made up thing in Project Blue Book. But how in the world could they expect anybody to buy into that picture or swamp gas like that? And that is what everybody was seeing across the United States for 20, 30 years in the 50s, 60s. I just don't get it. So there, go look at it. There it is, swamp gas. And if you can hear me right now, I want your pictures of swamp gas. Next Wednesday's show, we'll put it up. We'll put up a huge gallery. I'll give everybody credit. Go and search the web. Talk to your friends, your family, every picture that you have got of swamp gas. Send it in to Fade to Black. Send it in. Let's put the gallery together. This can't be the only one. And if it is, it just makes the story that much more fantastic. All right. Are you ready? Let's get this one cracking. Tonight, Larry Warren, Peter Robbins, Larry live. We haven't connected up with Larry yet, so I hope he's awake. It's 3:30 in the morning in London. Peter Robbins live from New York. This is Fade to Black at JChurch Radio, hashtag DMRadioNet. Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Dark Matter Radio Network. I'll be back right after this.
Out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black
on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black, Friday the 13th. Man, you got to love that. On the Dark Matter Radio Network, this is bespoke radio for the masses. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio, hashtag DMRadioNet. Go and jump in the room. Crackheads. Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Get the emails going. We will open up the phone lines. And let's get this one cracking. It's going to be a good one. Larry Warren. Larry Warren was honorably discharged from the United States Air Force in 1983. He is credited as the person who broke the story and cover-up surrounding the Rendlesham Forest incident. Larry was the catalyst that brought the story, the halt memo, and the audio tape to the public. He also led the early researchers and CNN to the Rendlesham Forest incident witnesses. He co-authored a book with Peter Robbins in 1997 titled Left at Eastgate, a first-hand account of the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident, its cover-up, and investigation. Larry was given the pseudonym Art Wallace by authors Larry Fawcett and Barry Greenwood for the 1983 book Clear Intent. Clear Intent was the first book published regarding the Rendlesham Forest incident. Warren, a member of the U.S. Air Force Security Police, was posted to England on the 1st of December 1980. Just weeks later, he was involved in the bizarre encounter that occurred in Rendlesham Forest. Peter Robbins is an investigative writer, author, and lecturer, best known for his UFO-related papers, columns, articles, editorials, commentaries, lectures, and media appearances. He is a regular fixture on radio and has appeared as a guest on and been a consultant to numerous television shows and documentaries. He is also the co-author, along with Larry Warren, of the highly acclaimed British bestseller Left at Eastgate, Its Cover-Up and Investigation. He was born in New York City, studied art, design, and theater at the University of Bridgeport in Connecticut, receiving his BFA from New York City's School of Visual Arts, where he taught painting for more than a dozen years. I would like to welcome to the program right now, Peter Robbins. You're first up on deck, man. How are you doing?
Good. Good to be back on the show, Jimmy.
A big welcome. We are waiting for Larry. It's 3:30 in the morning in London, and so we shall see. But we have got so much to talk about tonight, and before we get this started, and I don't want to say the word anymore because this is a very important evening. And I want everybody to know exactly what we are talking about here. You have sent me, and I'm just going to, I'll say it now publicly. I am the only person outside of your publishers to read your assessment report / review of the new Rendlesham book by Nick Pope, John Burroughs, and Jim Pedeston.
Well, you're the only person to read this final draft so far, you bet.
And thank you for that. Again, I told you, and I really mean this, I'm humbled by that, but I understand the importance of this document too as well. And it is not 2 pages. I want everybody to know. I lost count, but it's what you sent me was in excess of 150 pages, correct?
Yeah.
And with that, I want to make this comment first before we jump into this. I honestly feel that in reading it, there wasn't. I mean, most people would expect why Peter Robbins. Why would somebody select Peter Robbins to review their book when there could be a potential, not only a conflict of interest, but maybe even an axe to grind? And I thought, wow, how do you remain objective with that? And now I have read it, so I'm going to say this: you behaved yourself, and I don't know how you did. I really don't, but you behaved yourself, and I think it was about as honest of a writing that any journalist could have and researcher could have and would have put together on this. So I commend you for that.
Thank you, Jimmy.
And how this is the question of the hour. How did you bite your lip? How did you maintain control in staying so objective?
Well, as a writer, I tend to write exactly what I'm thinking and feeling on the first draft, knowing full well that not only can I not use it, it's impossible for me to use it, but I get it out there, and then I can react to it and refining it in the drafts to come. In a way, you just split yourself off from yourself, and you stay focused on being objective and doing your best professional work. And people and life and UFO cases are complex. And even if you come down very much on one side of an argument, if you're completely honest with yourself, you can often make arguments on the other side, at least from a devil's advocate point of view. But like you said, this is not an impersonal subject for me. It's a case that I've worked in so many words for over a quarter of a century. And I knew that it would not produce the result that I was after to just get in a huff about it. The problem that I was seeing and the challenge of writing a review that then became a paper that then, in essence, became a somewhat unconventional book. And the the short answer and the long answer to your short question is you just do the best you can. And when you feel yourself starting to get caught up with personal feelings, you refocus on taking pride in objectivity. I don't know how better to say it.
Well, I know in reading through it, I could tell that you were, you're cool, and then you just went and pumped the brakes.
Yeah.
And that's when there's when you are an author like yourself and a certain subject like this for so many years, you have every single aspect, turn and characters, and so when you reach a spot where you go, wait a minute, those are my words or my research or somebody here just didn't do their due diligence. And when you stop, because you're trying to be cool, and I get that, I really do. And then when that happens, that's when you got to go, okay, you know what? I need to say something here. And is that what happened?
Yeah. It's almost like a drive mechanism. I'm sure since Left at Eastgate came out, and it was published in an expanded edition in 2005, but it was originally published in 1997, both here and in the UK. And I've probably written several hundred articles and editorials and columns and obituaries and commentaries and reviews in the years since then. Forget about what I wrote leading up to that. And every once in a while, it's not very common, but sometimes a project chooses you rather than you choosing it. Sometimes it's fortuitous and it's just what you were looking for, except that it found you first, so to speak.
Right.
But it's rare in my experience that you feel compelled to write something you don't want to write, and that you don't want to write about, because it challenges a lot of your feelings about the way things should be, the way things you thought the way things were, the nature of friendship and different kinds of loyalties. But every once in a while, you simply have to do it and step into the breach. And if it comes back on you in a negative way, then so be it. And this was one of those rare instances in my writing and professional life where I didn't really see that I had a choice. And writing a high-quality, objective book review did not satisfy the situation. I think I wrote a good book review, though, and writing a paper based on what I had learned in a book review that amounted to an investigation also did not give me an opportunity to say what I had to, the way that I had to say it. And so I just continued to write. And then working with my friends, the editors at Phenomena Magazine in Manchester in the UK, this book, which was published as a manuscript 6 weeks or 2 months ago, and not a completed one, is now a completed, fully edited manuscript with an impressive appendices attached, and an epilogue by my friend and colleague Colin Andrews, who, after reading the initial draft, asked me what he could contribute, and that's what it is.
Well, I'm gonna jump in there because I have to comment really quick, because reading the comments from or the intros from everybody, I think they felt the same way, and it's worded really well. In that,
those are the two editors in England at Phenomena Magazine that wrote those forewords there.
Yeah, and it just opens up the door correctly. Now I'm gonna with that. You had said to me today, so I'm gonna make a couple of announcements that you are going to make this available free, right?
Yes.
And in book form, electronically to everybody. And so we will get the links up as soon as the editing is done and you guys are prepped and ready. We will get it up at jimmychurchradio.com. I think it's good for everybody. There's not.
Yeah.
It's good. Well, I want to say that I don't think Nick or Jim or Charles or Larry, I don't think anybody would have issues with anything that is there. There's, and I'm being serious about that. And the reason,
well, that's a nice thought. I guess we'll find out once it is in print, so to say. And again, just to underscore what you just said, Jimmy, we should have it out within a week, give or take a few days. And as soon as it is in print and downloadable for anyone to read or, again, to have their own copy of, I will let you know ASAP, and you can get that link up there. And it will be free of cost and available to anyone that is interested in reading the account.
Now, this is the other thing. This is what I would like to do. And I have more or less reached out to everybody the same way that I'm going to suggest this to you now. Larry's not with us on the show, but I'm sure he's cool. But this is what I would like to do. I need to get all of you guys together and let's just sit and talk. And I'm serious. I'll fly all of you guys out to L.A., and we can sit and we can have a nice impartial audience and just have everybody sit down and hash this out. Because, and I really, in reading Burroughs' communique that he had with Halt, right? And I'm reading that, and I'm just thinking about how can you guys be so disconnected? And I know that Peniston and Burroughs seem to have a disconnection, and of course, then we can throw Larry into the picture too as well, and a few other people that are behind the scenes, and it just seems like everybody knows that something went down, something significant.
Oh, yes.
And let's just get everybody together at one place at one time. Would you be willing to do that if I put this together in the next month?
Oh, absolutely, Jimmy, and I'd be happy to work with you on it. And I'll just say that on the record for anybody that's listening. Because, again, as you learn, as you read this, and there are some points I don't know if you're able to get through, and I put Jimmy on a bit of a spot because I didn't have the finalized manuscript until last night. So the poor guy has had, a day to read a book, and you've done valiantly. But there are so many differences between these people. I would love to see everybody together with a stake in this who was involved or who has put in the years researching this in some ethical way. It would be wonderful. We've come close in having a number of these players together on various radio shows and occasionally a small number speaking at the same conference, but a dedicated event that could actually bring all these people together would be of real value to all of us.
It would be, and I have the resources to do that, and I happen to be right now. It's just a moment in time in that I'm right in the middle of all of you guys, and in the last couple of weeks, I've spoken to everybody. You know what I mean? And I think we can. This is something that I think everybody just needs to just stop for a second, take a deep breath. And just, let's just do it. Sit down.
Yeah.
It's not going to be bad. It's just for everybody, get your memories locked back together, communicate, and get the story out in one nice linear piece of media for everybody.
Well, there's really no one nice linear approach. The fact is, of course, that we're dealing with legitimately interlocking, overlapping, unrelated stories, accounts, impressions, memories of a number of individuals involved on 3 consecutive nights in differing events, and in some cases, God knows, in full physiological shock for parts of the events, as who wouldn't be if some of these things were happening to us rather than them.
Well, that's true. But I'll give you a 60-second example of why I understand what's going down. When I was a kid, I was 15 years old. Me and 5 buddies get chased out of the jungle down in Panama by the police, right?
Whoa.
And no. It was just stupid. It was retarded. It was just kids goofing off, drinking in the jungle. That's all it was. But there was some firecrackers or something involved, and one of the was somebody that lived up on this hill had called the police saying that they heard gunshots. Right?
Oh dear.
Now we had nothing to do with firecrackers or guns. Didn't know anything and didn't hear anything. But what we were guilty of was underage drinking. Right? So anyway, so we get chased out of the wood. And when we get to the bottom of the hill, they take us all. They finally find us. There's like 5 or 6 of us. Take us to the police station. One at a time, they bring us in this room and interrogate us. Now, we were 60 minutes removed from the said incident, okay? And the 6 of us, none of us told the same story. None of us. We couldn't tell the same story. And it wasn't that we were lying. It was just that's what happens, you know? Yeah. And so no matter what, when now you're dealing with something that is decades old and it spans 3 days, and you've got a whole list of actors here. And so that's just it. You know, you're not going to get things to line up. You're not going to get all memories the same. And then when you throw in the debriefing and disinfo and things that came down from above and possible drugs and everything else that was probably thrown into the mix, it's impossible. But let's get everything, you know, and that's, you know, certainly there seems to be a little bit of animosity. Let's get rid of that crap.
Well,
you know,
and that would be wonderful also. It has been nursed around by individuals driving these people against each other. You would think that individuals who were united by a series of traumatic events, even if not in the exact same one, would more relate to each other like brothers in arms or people that had really shared a profoundly important experience in different aspects instead of seeing each other as ne'er-do-wells or naysayers or the problem as opposed to part of the solution or the other. There's been a great deal of screwing around with people's perceptions of other people here, of sowing seeds of discord and distrust. And the human nature aspect, for many of the years that I worked on Left at Eastgate, I had a weekly volunteer job for a very wonderful British organization called Samaritans International that run crisis intervention centers and hotlines in, I'm sure, at least 50 or 60 countries around the world. Minor presence in the United States, but I was essentially a crisis intervention counselor, phone volunteer in the busiest suicide hotline in America, to be blunt, in New York City. And just what you said before triggered a memory in terms of our training as lay people, which was, number one, even in the simplest auto accident, if half a dozen people hear that noise and turn at the same time, the accounts that will be collected by law enforcement or insurance people or whatever are all going to differ. Even if you're looking at it at the same moment, you're looking at it with a different colored set of perceptions from a different angle with a different set of experiences. And this is a conventional event rather than something truly anomalous and seemingly otherworldly.
Right. I'll tell you another event. I just, last year before, I was in a 9-car pileup on the 405 freeway. Yep. And I was the second car in the front. Wasn't my fault. Somebody in a van in front of us spun on the freeway, which caused, it was like NASCAR, right? So the state police, the highway patrol comes up. He's getting all of these statements. He comes up to me and he goes, "Okay, what happened?" He goes, you know, check this out. I've talked to 20 people. I've got 9 different colors of cars that caused this accident, and none of those cars are here. So please tell me something, you know. And it was funny. Nobody, and I told him the best that I could, and he said, your story doesn't match anybody else's either. I don't know what to do. And you're absolutely right. You know, and that's just it. We know something significant happened. That is the bottom line here. And you know what? There was one thing I wanted to touch upon was you brought up a really, really, really good point, and something that I don't think has been driven home enough. But that is, when Larry decided to pull the trigger on this, when he did, Halt is still in the Air Force. And he's still in the Air Force. And Halt is an officer, and his cover is blown on something that he probably just wanted to keep buried.
Of course.
And
who needs this?
Right. Well, he's got a career in front of him.
Yeah, it's not even his cover being blown as much as he was a witness, and he was an officer in the chain of command with men who were witnesses under him who needed reining in to a certain degree, and it was Larry Warren who gave Halt's name and Penniston's name and Burroughs' name and so many of the other first-night witnesses to investigator at the time, police lieutenant in Connecticut and UFO investigator Larry Fawcett. Fawcett used the information that Warren gave him, and only that Larry Warren gave him, to put together with Citizens Against UFO Secrecy and his writing partner Barry Greenwood, a Freedom of Information Act action that the next year resulted in the release of the so-called Halt document, the abbreviated, compressed, somewhat minimized and redacted confirmation of the events that the Deputy Base Commander Charles Halt wrote on the 13th of January, a full 2 weeks or so after the event. And so, yes, he is, for me, the most complex and, in a way, engaging player in this, because he is both a victim and, even though he's been very forthcoming about his feelings about UFOs being otherworldly, he still is part of the, I won't even say the cover-up, but just keeping things a little less clear than they could be, as I lay out in the appropriate chapter.
And that was like the first, that's the first build of animosity probably happened right there. The first little undertow, that undercurrent of things to, of things to come. But, Larry started off on the wrong foot with that because he was the one that broke his oath and his silence. And
Larry put the truth here about this nuclear treaty violation.
Right.
And ahead of, as we discuss, ahead of all of the official stuff. And I draw parallels there to Admiral Lord Peter Hill Norton, a former chief of staff of the Ministry of Defense, the full equivalent of a chief of staff of our Department of Defense, a Colin Powell, if you will, who also pursued the same line of thinking rather than the official line relative to covering up UFOs and the security possibilities that, or the lack of security possibilities that their presence might indicate. So, Jim, John, Nick are still, loyal to their security oaths. I would guess Charles Halt as well. And Larry Warren put something ahead of his, and there lies the difference.
Which is fine, except, and both of them, and Nick Pope as well, but both of them when they are on this program wouldn't cross that line still, which is fine, except why, instead of saying, I can't talk about that because I was, then just say that there were no nuclear weapons there. Mm-hmm. Just say that instead of taking, that the other approach, which
that they can't say that.
Well, but isn't that what? But do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
The security oath is there for them to not divulge secret information. The secret information would be that there were indeed nuclear weapons there violating a treaty. But if you say there were no nuclear weapons there, then that's the position you're supposed to have taken to begin with.
Yes, it kind of falls askew of the what is the official terminology at the ministry. Essentially, no comment either way. And if you were to say something that wasn't true, and that could be established later, then you have the very indelicate situation of legitimately being able to be described as a liar. And none of these people who are loyal to their security oaths, want to complicate their situation, I'm sure, by telling an untruth rather than, stonewalling it, hardlining it, never say anything. It's just meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It's the way the game has been played since time immemorial. If you're, following that set of rules, it's very annoying and it seems a distraction sometimes. But
do you have any type of oath that you've signed?
Oh, I've never been in the military.
That's my point. No. So this is my next question. Were there nuclear weapons at Woodbridge?
Well, I never saw them. But yes, my very best evidence over more than a quarter century of looking into this, including contact with Lord Hill Norton, a former chief of staff of the Ministry of Defense, who was one of Larry's and my greatest champions in the UK until he passed some years ago in his 90s. As well as I can say, but then again, I'm not in a position to know. So I'm coming at it from the other end. My co-author was trained in his basic training in the summer of 1980 in Texas to work around nuclear ordinances. It was one of the reasons he was deployed to that base. My friend Pat Cooligan, who is former law enforcement personnel working in Roswell, New Mexico, who before that was a nuclear weapons specialist stationed at RAF Bentwaters for several years before these events. He was rotated out several years earlier, also worked around this kind of ordinance. These are individuals who I trust, and again, Pat's job title was a nuclear weapons specialist. It's for people like you and me who don't have access to having been there with them and seen, those nuclear weapons in those bunkers that I visited just not more than a few months ago. Of course, no nukes in them right now. But yes, the no comment either way will neither confirm nor deny. That's what the policy is. Neither confirm nor deny. It's a gentleman's sort of way of not having to tell an untruth and at the same time leaving the rest of us very frustrated and somewhat angry that we're still getting a runaround.
How did you feel when, and this is serious too, this is a very serious question, when Norton Hill gets up in front of Parliament with your book in his hand, and he is going, WTF, right?
in his gentlemanly way.
Yes, and you know how they do it there. I mean, those guys are beating each other up.
They do go at it.
They do go at it. And he was livid. And he is citing your book as fact. He's thumping on it. And he's
Jimmy,
saying...
I will tell you, that is one of the great personal days in a kind of goofy sort of existential way, but with a lot of real pride as well. October 28th, 1997, the former chief of staff of the ministry, a former admiral of the fleet, making him the highest-ranking naval officer in Great Britain when he was in that position, and then a member of Parliament steps out onto the floor of the House of Lords with his inscribed copy of Left at Eastgate, which he has read from cover to cover, and goes one-to-one against Lord Gilbert, who was then the Secretary for Defense, and asks him four very specific, very loaded questions taken out of our book. Lord Gilbert, who did believe in the no comment understanding, the neither confirm nor deny, did not answer the questions. But, yeah, that was a very proud day for me and Larry. There have been a handful of other UFO-related books that have been mentioned in Parliament, and we are among a bloody few of them. And
what if it would have been a step further, like it was some kind of United States, Great Britain, puffy chest on both sides of the pond, and it just got ugly because of your book? I mean, what do you feel guilty?
No, I don't feel guilty. We did cause Her Majesty's government some real embarrassment when the book came out in 1997, in part because of the amount of detail and evidence and witness testimony involved in an event which Her Majesty's government had generally continued to go on record with as saying whatever happened in that area in late December 1980 was of no defense significance, which, as Hill Norton pointed out repeatedly, was not only ignorant, arrogant, it was dangerous. It was incredibly dangerous in an area we now know that had the largest backline repository of nuclear ordnance in Great Britain, certainly. I'm not sure if in all of the NATO establishment. That was part of the backstory in that exact location in Suffolk, East Anglia, where unknowns were coming in over a nuclear weapons storage area in a highly secured and highly militarized part of Great Britain, only 70-odd miles from London,
right,
and shining, I guess, the equivalent of industrial lasers. And I want your listeners to visualize that on that first night and the other nights when beams were shown down to the ground, and one was shown down into the group that Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Halt and a number of men were with on the third night in another area from where Larry was on the third night, that because there's so much moisture in the air, zillions of little droplets.
Fog, London fog.
Yeah, but that visualize that these beams of light, it wasn't like a laser pointer where you shine it into the woods and you see it on a tree. You would see it as a line because of the moisture in the air. And on that night, beams of light were being shot into the weapons storage area, and we're told after the fact for years by the ministry that whatever happened there was of no defense significance. I mean, again, these are almost 101 kind of questions, but the hubris that goes along with the stiff upper lip and the square jaw of trying to bluff your way through a truly anomalous, potentially very out of control and dangerous situation is incredibly unnerving.
Well, and therein lies another problem that I find very interesting is not only with those lasers, but I don't want to keep pointing fingers back to Colonel Halt, but sometimes we do. And in this case, he's told a couple of different versions of this what's the word that I want to use? This event when it came to the beams of light coming down to the weapons storage area, the WSA. And now that's why I want to be able to just get everybody together, right? And just ask, okay, look, did you see this from your house? Did you not see it from your house? Did you see it on the way there? Or are you just saying that somebody else said it that you trust, and you're using that testimony to say that the beams of light were there? What, and I don't know if he said this originally just because he wanted to be part of the party, and he wanted to say, hey, yeah, I saw him too. I saw him from my house. Or did he really see him from the house? And it's best that it's stories like this that I need to really honestly get it out there so we can finally, like I said, linearly put all of this together, who saw what and when. And I think it's very, 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 very important for Halt to do this, because everybody says, I saw Halt there, or I was there with Halt, or
there's very little to contest. There's really nothing to contest his presence in the woods in an area that is fairly well defined, with a number of men, personnel that he had pulled together to go out and investigate this on the third night of events. In fact, no one that I'm aware of, myself certainly included, is debating or questioning the event that Halt was involved in, the same way that I do not question the reality and the specifics overall related by John and Jim about the event that they got involved in on the first night. However, those parties all not only questioned the event that Larry Warren was involved in on the third night in another area, in a farmer's field not far from where Colonel Halt was at the time, called Capel Green, but to use a wonderful phrase of Stanton Friedman's, and I spoke to him not that long ago to make sure that I had the quote right, which was, don't bother me with the facts, my mind is already made up. The facts are that the very, very precise area in that field that Larry first identified to me on a series of maps and with the drawing in 1987 that we visited for the first time together. This was the exact site of his event 8 years before. We visited in February 88. There were profound differences to the soil. And several years later, a full professional analysis of the site-specific soil of the spot that Larry identified as where his thing happened on the third night was put through any number of tests. And the results are phenomenal. They are phenomenal. They're fully documented. The scientist that conducted them is still alive and well and will fully re-verify. Photographic evidence backs it up, as well as the laboratory analysis done at a very reputable lab in Massachusetts. We ultimately have overlaying that physical evidence, voice stress analysis of the audio tape that I made walking into the woods with Larry on that very first walk-in in February of 88, put through voice stress analysis, identifying the honesty, the lack of any deception in his voice with other physical evidence, other accounts on, in other words, I guess what I'm saying is we have triangulated on that small piece of real estate in that farmer's field more evidence, court-level evidence that you could use to convict somebody in a felony case than any other witnesses or alleged witnesses have of any other aspect of anything that happened over those 3 nights. And yet that is repeatedly ignored, even though it's been on the record for years now.
Now, I'll let everybody know. If you go over to jimmychurchradio.com and you hover over the home tab, that will open up our past guest galleries. And if you scroll down to the bottom, or you look down at the bottom, you will see it says Peter Robbins, Rendlesham, CIA, right there at the bottom. And click on that, and there is Larry's original, Larry and Peter's original photographs of the farmer's field. They're right there in the middle, and they're there. And they are extraordinary pictures because these 2 pics, these were done in 1987. This is 17 years after the event. And the discoloration in the field, the exact spot where Larry saw this, that's an anomaly. That's the real deal.
Well, and actually the timing is a little off in that the event occurred in 80. We went back in 88. So we first observed it over 8 years later. But the tests were conducted actually more than 10 years later, almost a dozen years later. And the results were phenomenal, even that much time after.
I'm sorry, 18 years. 1980 to 1988 is when this was, 8 years.
It's still a long time for a trace case, that's for sure.
Well, in my brain, I was pretty close, you know.
It was very exciting to observe, yes.
Oh, now, a couple of other questions that I had after reading through this. And again, I don't have anything written down, but
sure.
Why, or was there? The event happened at Bentwaters, or outside of Bentwaters. Woodbridge is right there. These are actual. I mean, you could almost call them, twin bases or sister bases.
Yes.
They're, for all intents and purposes, it's not one base, but it could be. Did Woodbridge see anything? Come and go from the forest? Was there anything on their radar? Was anybody on their post alerted?
There's a series of maps that will come with the upcoming edition of the book, which is called Deception, and it will locate where in England this all occurred, the proximity of the forest to the bases to each other. To bust through any confusion here, first, the twin base complex, they're 5-6 miles away from each other, and RAF Bentwaters has been decommissioned now for over 20 years, but they were very close, again, 5 or 6 miles. Woodbridge is still an active RAF base, and not to be confused with the town of Woodbridge, which is only a matter of miles from there. The event on the third night that Larry Warren was involved in, and the separate event earlier on the third night that Lieutenant Colonel Halt and his men were involved in, happened much closer to RAF Woodbridge than to RAF Bentwaters. They happened, in fact, I would say within a mile or so from the Woodbridge perimeter and maybe 5 or 6 miles from RAF Bentwaters.
Why hasn't anybody from the Great Britain side, from the RAF, come forward?
Oh, well, I don't know. We do have some confirmations, and I discussed some of them toward the end of Deception, of individuals who were involved on both sides, who certainly have confirmed their presence. I think part of it may be a different series of security regulations governing behavior and transgressions on the British side, but also this happened in almost an entirely American military personnel context as far as the first generation of eyewitnesses of all of these events went. Peripherally, there were certainly British personnel who saw phenomena, lights in the night sky or movement in the forest or what have you, as well as civilians. But the witnesses who were there front and center, who were involved overwhelmingly, were all United States Air Force personnel, hence why there are probably fewer retired or, very well, I would guess they'd all have to be retired at this point, former British military personnel who have a stake in this or an account that really is as blunt and dramatic or the impact on their lives was such that it was to the Americans. And of course, let's remember that the overwhelming impact, depending on, I guess, who you were, of what happened in terms of perceiving this anomalous activity that you saw, for some of the men, and I would say with respect, Larry and Jim and John may very well be perfect examples, that the things that happened to them afterward, that they were put through afterward, caused a great deal more trouble, psychologically certainly, than some of what happened in the actual events. All of them seem to have been exposed or potentially exposed to a radioactive source. They have all had their own fair share of non-standard health problems. And again, we can only guess at the specifics of exactly what went down.
Well, what I would suggest, and you started to go there, but what I would suggest is that the British were able to, because it was in country, that they were able to suppress and clean up this mess on their own soil. I hate to even say that or suggest that, but that's what it appears to me.
I think you're making sense there.
Yeah, and the other angle is this: why in an official capacity, why wasn't there from Woodbridge? Bentwaters was ours, but from Woodbridge, because it's RAF, if there was something threatening their airspace like that, why wasn't jets or helicopters, some type of response dispatched? It's in country. It's there. It's right there. Why wasn't it? And I would suggest that there was, but
Yes.
all of that documentation has been removed. And
Correct.
And I want you to comment besides correct, because this is where I'm getting a little bit dark. And I hope, Nick can appreciate this statement instead of, confront me later about it. But that's part of Nick's participation in this too as well. And when he responded to you with your request for information on this,
yes,
his response is, "We got nothing."
Yeah.
Right? That's his response.
Well,
Now,
the irony there, of course, was that was a little over 20 years ago in 1993 when he actually was serving at that legendary position, Air Secretary at, I forget, Desk AS2, but it is the position that gained him the notoriety that made him, the man, the MOD's UFO go-to guy.
And somebody we all respect, right? We all respected him, and we still do. I'm not suggesting anything, but
but what you're saying is absolutely true. At the time, being the guy putting out the official government position, I received the form letter from him, signed by him, saying, among other things, that it's just one of those things, lights in the night sky, we'll probably never know the full specifics, and that whatever it was, in so many words, was of no defense significance.
And a total blow-off, which is fine. That was his job.
He was doing his job there.
Right. I get that. But then to turn around and write this book that is the most documented UFO case in history. Now, for me, I wanted Nick to come a little bit clean on this, but then again, he's also got his security clearances that he has to deal with too. But that he knows something about jets that were scrambled, because there had to have been. There must have been helicopters dispatched. There must have been. And all of that was left out of his book. And I would like for him to have addressed it in a more direct fashion. And so when you got to that part in the book, how did you feel?
Very frustrated. Nothing new, except that many of us had real hopes for this book. And Jim and John, for more than a year before it went to press, were promising to deliver a great deal, which they did not. And when many of us learned that they'd be working with Nick, we not only look forward to a more professionally composed project, and one that likely would be represented by a more upscale publisher, but that these three experienced people, these two very well-known first-night eyewitnesses, and somebody with 4 previous UFO books under his belt and a great deal of international notoriety and a known commodity in the UFO field, that they would give us something with considerably more substance than what they gave us.
I feel the same way. And it's easy to look back in hindsight and critique, but if you're gonna say certain things, then let's make it just that. And then there's this is where it gets a little bit touchy for all of us, but I'm going there now. Larry Warren. And for Larry, I would have thought that left at Eastgate, Larry's let's say Larry wasn't there, if that's the position that they want to take, but you can still comment about Larry bringing all of this forward, or you could talk about the facts that were in the book, and you can reference that, and you can index that, and none of that was there, and I don't understand that aspect of it. I really don't, and because here it is, I'm putting it all on the table. Larry still signed a witness. He signed his documents.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and so he was there, and he was brought in, and he was debriefed, and to choose to ignore that, it needs to be there, and it's part of the story.
Yes.
And so, I mean, how did you deal with that? Again, you behaved, but in your review of the book, you behaved. But I think I would have handled it a little bit differently.
Yeah. I thought if I was going to err, I should do it on the side of objectivity. There was so much that I knew I had to be extremely specific about. And I have watched Larry, who I know to be a person of outstanding character, of real principle, of tenacity, of genuine courage. I've watched him get slammed for more than a quarter of a century as a public figure who cares more about the truth than making friends or what people think about him. And he is a tough son of a gun. But he has suffered because of this, and for me, one bit of human behavior that I will not forgive is calculated nastiness, where you go out of your way to do something that is simply hurtful. And there are plenty of people that have come at Larry with counterclaims or questioning his account that he has been on record with for over 30 years. And many of them have tried to do it with respect and curiosity and wanting to know more about what's going on. Other people have done it in a really nasty way and in a way that goes after the character rather than the content of what you're saying, because you can't break through it. We've established it too well in, again, I can only equate it to legal terms, but enough already of seeing him undermined like this. And as you know, the thing that compelled me to write this book was, much to my shock, after being hired as a writer for, in this case, a British publication called UFO Truth Magazine. It's a bi-monthly that I'm a regular columnist for. Months ago, my editor and the publisher, Gary Hazeltine, asked me if I was up for writing a review of this book. He knew that if I was, that I would do an objective, fair-handed job. His question was, are you up for it, or is it going to, like you were saying, is it going to annoy you or distract you or piss you off? And I said, no, I will take it on. I will do the very best review anybody can do as far as I'm concerned. I will go out of my way to offer praise and support for everything that I agree with and come down on them for other things. And I expected a certain amount of dissonance in Jim and John's presentation. I found a lot less than I thought might be there. Ironically, I think Nick redirected their strategy a bit. But then I observed something that I really had to question my senses at first, namely a pattern of what I could only conclude after being hit on the head with it enough times, of calculated deception that wove its way throughout the narrative. Nick was writing around Jim and John's account and supplying extra information, but it was done in such a subtle way that I felt very few people would catch it. The reason I was seeing it clear as a bell was because it always and only involved taking information, and I know this how this might sound to a casual listener, that I'm fairly full of myself or a bit deluded, but the pattern I observed was that every data point of information that was used to undermine, to question, to discredit a claim of Larry's or mine, or original research that appeared and left at Eastgate, it was information that was only available from our book. In other words, that's where Nick had to have gotten it. But it was never presented, again, straightforwardly, fairly or honestly, or in a manner that answered the question that he asked. In other words, referring to a very specific event and the allegation that Larry was alone as a witness, when he was literally drawing on a part of the book where we had established that there were two other military witnesses that were backing up this thing, in other words, 3 witnesses in total, where he's saying there's only one witness that we know of who alleges that, and that's Larry, and he has nothing to back it up. And over and over and over and over, I saw this, and it was disturbing. It concerned me. It made me angry. It made me a bit confused because I thought that the writer was a friend of mine, for starters, and that I couldn't figure out, and I don't know why he did this. And I realized if I were to start to make accusations or try to explain it in a conversation or a thread on Facebook or discussing it with somebody who hadn't read my treatment of it, I would sound a bit like a paranoid, fairly smart lunatic, and somebody who has just gotten lost in, their own gravitas and their own tiny mind. But no, there's a real problem here.
Well, if it would have been footnoted, would you care? Then,
well,
I mean,
you bring up, as you know, a very pet peeve of mine here, which is left at Eastgate. I'm very proud to say not only was footnoted and annotated, I think it has over 300 separate footnotes in it, and I know because I put them together. I fact-checked each one. I made sure that they were all, correctly connected to the statements that warranted their presence on a page.
Right.
There wasn't a single footnote in this seeming, this big claim book on this subject. And Nick's response to why was that, well, as you go, if you identify each source, it's the same thing. But not only is that not true, and not only does he not identify each source as he goes through the book, he sometimes is erroneous about the sources. There are several points where, once again, a point is brought up in the book, is not credited at all, but it's from our book, and the several times that points that could only have been sourced from our book are credited, the credits are erroneous, they don't exist, or they're wrong. And again, I felt if I'm going to make claims like this, I guess I have to write a book because I have to back each one up with specifics, page numbers, quotes, which I do repeatedly throughout Deception.
So, but you didn't answer the question, Peter.
Oh, sorry about that.
If there were footnotes, would you have cared?
If they were accurate footnotes and they credited our book,
right?
So that somebody, well, now see, here's the thing, though. If it did credit our book and it was written the same way it was, anybody could go to a page and say, hang on, wait a minute. Over here, Nick is saying that there were rumors that there was a suicide of one of the men, and Colonel Hill Norton heard about the rumors in such and such a manner, and nothing proved the rumors to be accurate. If there were footnotes and they were accurate, then the reader would go to Left at Eastgate and see the several pages referring to the suicide
right.
of Larry's roommate, the very specifics surrounding it, the fact that Hill Norton found out about it from Larry and from our book and asked it as a specific question in Congress. He did not find out about it from another source, as Nick wants the reader to understand.
Right.
And again, had it been footnoted, you would know that Hill Norton got the information where he did. So if the book were footnoted, I think it would have had to have been written, to be blunt, more honestly, because otherwise the reader could repeatedly establish that what they were reading was not accurate.
Well, okay. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm
Please
going
do.
to. I'm going to.
It's okay.
Because if he would have footnoted, then he's admitting that Larry Warren was there. And that's my point. And
Well, he is, and he's also admitting that the main source that he keeps drawing on for Encounter in Rendlesham Forest, the name of Pope Peniston and Burroughs' book, the most consistent uncredited source that I was able to establish, maybe there's one that was consistently uncredited more, but I wouldn't know that, is Left at East Gate, and Larry Warren and myself as the sources.
we are Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. We are talking to Peter Robbins out of New York. This is Rendlesham Part 4 on the Dark Matter Radio Network. We are patiently waiting for Larry to call in from London. It is now 4:30 a.m. in London, and it is
We're hoping for the best.
Yeah, we're hoping for the best. And you know, it's funny with Larry all week, Jimmy. I'm going to set America straight, man. You know, he was so, you know, and he was fired up. And
yeah, it's very frustrating for him because of the work schedule that he has. And if he's not able to participate tonight, I know you will have a great show with him or him and me in future. But I know he's frustrated if he can't get on tonight.
It's okay. You know, hey, one of the we have so many things. So let's get back on track.
Yep.
One of the things I'm going to have you speak for Larry right now, if you don't mind, is the question. I have a friend of mine that is an author. His name is Don. I won't embarrass him right now with his last name, but I'm doing this without his permission. But he had sent me an email that I had sent to you. Okay, and you remember this email. It was a couple of weeks ago about whether Larry had said that he had seen an ET or two or three talking to a superior officer or two outside of the craft, and what was the context of that? And
yeah, in fact, thank you
before
for reminding me of that.
Yeah, and before you answer, Peter, if you don't mind.
Sure.
This actually, it was kind of funny that he sends me this email because Larry needed to and felt very compelled to address this directly.
Yes.
And it also reflects back to all of the characters in this story about what has really been said and what is conjecture or out and out lies. So I'm throwing it right at you. What has
well,
Larry
number
said?
one, this is the perfect example of the kind of question that people love to ask me, and again, we don't have Larry here right now, but of course it's Larry's question, and it's gotten him miffed over the years that I try to answer for him. However, that understood, let me say, knowing Larry, knowing this account, knowing the story, knowing the variations on the account as well as I do, Larry, and people think, you're splitting infinitives or hairs here or something, but number one, Larry has never said that he saw extraterrestrials or ETs. That would presume that we actually know that they're there, which for me and Larry as well is colossally arrogant. How can we know that even if we see some other life form there? Yes, there were life forms there, and he observed them along with other men, and he can give you the details on that. However, an officer did make their way, did come into the area in question, and that account has never wavered. Now, that officer faced off with these intelligences, these beings, but the mythology, the lore, the legend that has grown up around this is that they communicated. Well, we can deduce, being that human communication, the great majority of it is nonverbal. When you look into another person's eyes, or you scratch a cat, or you pet a dolphin or whatever, when you make contact with another species, it can be in a very non-verbal way. We have nothing to confirm to us that an American Air Force officer communicated with ETs or other intelligences. We know that there was a face-off in that field, but it gets very, very colorful in the retelling.
Yeah, this is his response to me. I'll read this out. Read this out to everybody. But this is what he says. He says, I never said, written of, or thought I saw E.T. I indeed did see something that seemed to be alive, separate from the object in the field. So did others that also are on record. As for communication with the commander, I've never said that as well, ever.
Hooray.
Yeah, but a commander whom was there was very close. If you get a chance to read our book, I'm the guy that got it out. And he said there's lots of disinfo on me put out by wishful thinkers and other USAF whom I outed, and he doesn't name names here. He said, but then again, I would love to come on and talk about this. And then he says, I will fry your brain.
Pure Larry.
Yeah.
And he can do it, too.
And then,
my brain initially needs time to recover after having it fried from him every once in a while.
And then he went
He's the best.
Yeah, he sent me one other note a day later, but I just think this is... He just says, look, I'm tired of other folks saying what I think and what I feel back in the States. I'm not dead, and he goes, I will be a mind blower on your show. And he said, hey, Ronnie James Dio would dig that. Cheers, man. As you know, my little thing on Facebook is myself, Ronnie James Dio. So that's direct from Larry. And,
good.
And well, and it says it all. It's just the time is getting away from us now. So I did want to, in lieu of him probably sleeping in and missing the program, we'll get him on next week. No big deal. But it really says a lot about where he is coming from. He is just. And again, the reason for getting everybody together in one spot, I
am 110% with you, and I am sure that Larry, his only variable is going to be his schedule with his son and his work schedule. But otherwise, I'm ready to plan around it. I'd be honored to be part of any program like that. No question about it.
Well, okay, now let's move on. And I know you are, and everybody else is. Everybody else has said it's a great idea. Well, when it's time to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
So now, I want to talk about, if you don't mind, and you've commented on this, and I think that I have brought this up too many times with all of the characters involved, and that is the binary code. Now. Okay, I had a bunch of email that was sent to me because of they thought I made some offhanded comments about the binary code. And I had said on this program before everybody else came on the show, I had said, look, it's best that Larry, Jim, John, Colonel Halt, everybody just stick to your original story. As great as, it's fantastic as it, just let it go. Just let's keep it there. There's no reason to get this out of hand and make it more fantastical. And I referenced the binary code. And I had gotten tons of, Jimmy, man, they talked about the binary code in 1990. No, they did not. Nobody did. So, but let's talk about the binary code. And you said, and I want to make this clear, that there was no direct reference to it until 2010. Am I correct in that?
No. John Burroughs said that Jim Penniston made no direct reference to him about it until October 2010, but that he understood that he had spoken to several people about it before him. Now, Nick opens the chapter on the binary code by making a point of saying that for 30 years Jim kept a secret, the secret being that when he touched the craft, specifically when he touched a raised letter form, symbol, hieroglyphic, whatever you want to call it, a binary code, and not being a computer person, I had to learn all this from scratch, a 20th century computer code composed of ones and zeros, that thousands of these ones and zeros downloaded into his head, and that 24 hours later, he was able to remember them in order and copy out these ones and zeros onto, I believe, 16 pages of lined loose leaf paper in a smallish notebook, and that he knew, not that he believed or understood or felt, but that he knew that the message was from the intelligences behind the events of December 1980, and that they were not ETs or creatures from an interdimensional place or whatever, but that they were time travelers come back to the present to give Jim this message. Now, that is what has been put forward. But to circle back again, because your original question was, when did this first come up? Again, Nick begins the chapter on the binary code by saying that this was a secret that Jim kept for 30 years. But we learn about a page later that in a 1994 hypnotic exchange with a hypnotherapist that Jim was seeing at the time, he does speak about the binary code. And there are other lapses in those years as well. There's a lot of questions around it and whether or not it is what it purports to be. For me, I am convinced that Jim is convinced that what he thinks is what he thinks, but it's certainly not what I believe, which is a much more conventional and rather darker scenario than time travelers visiting from our future.
Well, I don't want to imply anything with Jim, and I do think that he's an honest guy. I do like our conversations that we've had.
Yes.
But this is the issue that I have. When you are basing everything in not only in your own book, but also publicly, that everything is based on fact, everything is based on the debriefing, everything is based on who was there and the eyewitness, and you're basing everything on black and white, then when you are sitting and you are getting debriefed and they are asking you questions and you insist publicly that you have a perfect memory, then how come you are not disclosing the contents of your said notebook at that debriefing? And that I have an issue with. I think the book, the notebook is one of the things, just like Colonel Halt's tapes, are one of the things that we have that put this whole thing together. And I love that. I respect it, and it is intriguing. But you can't have it both ways. And with Jim, when he said to me pretty pointedly, Jimmy, I have a perfect memory. I know exactly what happened.
Jeez.
Well, okay. Well, if you're going to say that, then how come in the debriefing you didn't remember that you wrote stuff down in your notebook, and it took a regression to get it out of you? I'm asking the obvious questions that everybody else has about Rendlesham, and this is one that is very direct.
Jim, how can I say? My biggest concern is that there is no flexibility, that there is, his attitude is almost fundamentalist on this. It is because that is what he says, and no dissent is going to be breached here. For me, the alternative to Jim Penniston, in his 20s, being caught up in this UFO event legitimately in late 1980, that is it more likely that this decent American guy serving his country as a law enforcement cop on an American base in England, caught up in this legitimate close encounter, that he was chosen by time travelers from our future to be the recipient, as opposed to any other human being on Earth, of a message from the future that he would reveal at a future time? Or is it, even if somewhat far-fetched, still more likely that Jim Pennison, a decent American sergeant caught up in a UFO event in 1980 while in the Air Force, was the victim of a sophisticated, long-term contingency plan, the aim of which was to target, mark, select military personnel who have been caught up in a legitimate UFO incident to be programmed to believe something even more fantastic sounding than a close encounter with other intelligences, one that, if made public at a future date, which would be part of the programming, could take the attention away from the less sexy, scientific, factual evidences that had been built up over the years by a cadre of dedicated researchers, scientifically trained or not, to make it the most respected, the best known UFO incident outside of Roswell in the world, probably, and one of the best ones, if not the best one, that we have to work with right now, and to draw attention to this sensational time traveler thing, and in the process, do real damage to the credibility of this event and make it more into a sideshow. Isn't it possible? Isn't it just a bit more possible?
It's 100% possible. Yes, absolutely. And I don't think there's any question about that at all. Let's come back to that for a second. I've gotten this tweet now like 3 times.
Yeah.
Lou Sheehan wants to, he says, didn't Cabin-Sag say and confirm that Warren was actually present?
You're talking about Ed Cabanasak. He was the personnel who drove John Burroughs and Jim Pennison out into the forest as far as they could get, and then they walked the rest of the way on their own. And I'm damned if I remember if Ed did make that statement, although a number of other men who were in the woods that night, 2 who were with D-Flight on the security police, also put Larry there. One is Steve LaPlume, the other is Greg Batram, both of whom supplied unsolicited statements confirming Larry's presence there that night.
Who didn't wasn't there a Facebook posting too as well?
Well, that was from, yes, and a pretty dramatic one. That was from Adrian Bustinza. Adrian
That's right.
stood right next to Larry through the event on the 3rd night, but was also in other areas during the event. And apparently last autumn, John Burroughs, if I understand it correctly, said that Adrian had told him that Larry was not there. And when Adrian found out that John had said that, he then spoke to a trusted colleague in Norfolk, England, Ronnie Dugdale, a known and certainly involved researcher in the area, and made it clear to Ronnie that he was, that Larry definitely was in the forest there that night with him and with the others, depending on where they were located. And yes, that statement is included in the book, and I'm sure was embarrassing to John, and well, it should have been.
How many of the original guys were you able to consult when writing Eastgate? I mean, did you involve Halt? Was Pennison involved? Was Burroughs involved in any capacity, or did you reach
Sure.
out to him?
No, definitely. I've got interviews in Left at Eastgate with John and with Charles Halt going back more than 20 years. Jim, I don't think I was able to contact through that period, but if you read Left at Eastgate, you'll see the accounts of a number of the individuals presented there who were involved in various parts of the event, and even more so if you are able to get the updated and expanded edition of the book that was published by Cosmo Books in 2005.
Yep.
But it's certainly not just Larry Warren's account. We spent 9 years, and there's quite a number of civilian accounts as well, and a great deal of information that I feel, again, is absolutely court-worthy evidence and documentation that could win a or at least win a felony case in a serious court of law if such subjects were adjudicated in courts, which they are not.
Well, and the reason why I wanted you to just say that out in the open is, if they're going to participate in something, and then turn around and say that, Larry wasn't there, and then they turn around and they write their own book where it seems a little bit of an omission with Larry.
It's a big omission.
Yes, and I don't understand it. I don't.
That is one of the things that compelled me to write the response book, because I didn't understand it. Maybe I do understand it, and I still am hoping that there's some explanation that I didn't consider, and that a deliberate attack on the credibility of my co-author as a viable witness, of the information that we spent so many years and worked so hard to establish as credible, valuable information that contributed to our collective knowledge on Rendlesham, that's included throughout Left at Eastgate, is of value, and that my work as an investigative writer is worthy of respect. And the subtext of Encounter in Rendlesham Forest as a book is that, no, it is not. And that Left at Eastgate is a book that should be written out of the story, which the authors effectively do. I mean, they even refer to the book by name in their book, and yet it's completely missing from their index. It is the source of at least a dozen specific facts, and the only possible source of at least that many facts throughout their book, and yet not one of them, not a single one of them is credited, and when they are credited, they're either not real sources or untrue sources. So, yes, we have some serious problems with this book, and I will be, I wish all of these guys well. I'd be fine by myself even, although I know Larry would not like to miss this, to be on a stage or be in any social situation face-to-face with Nick, Charles, Jim, and John, or any combination thereof, and with a moderator, go through our points of contention and ask each other the questions that we want to ask each other, and do what we can to find our common points of agreement and try to move forward in a more positive spirit. But right now, there's a number of things that have to be cleared up, tied up, and answered for before we really start to make any progress again.
Well, as long as there's infighting, then the man wins. And that's the truth.
Well, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And bad things happen when good people do nothing.
That's right. And there's one other point, though. The Da Vinci Code had about 500 companion books that were written.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, and
know.
and not only that, but the Da Vinci Code was based on, and I'm not making any kind of comparisons, but
Yeah.
it was also based on other books that it didn't give any references to. And I guess you know what, that's
Except
fine.
that it was written as a fiction.
Well,
It's written as a novel, and the rules are very different there than
Well-
when you're writing nonfiction.
Absolutely. Except what the point that I'm trying to make is the companion books came out not only from the old authors, but from different authors, pointing out the credit where credit needed to be put, but also for clarification in the book as well.
Oh, yes, it was such a popular book worldwide, and I love that it generated so much popular interest in such an esoteric kind of dusty subject that became, such an international smash bestseller.
And so you're quite in the right for writing the companion book, and so I think it's fine, and we're already calling it a book, but it is certainly a book.
It is, and with the appendices that it's going to have when it's published in a week or so, I'm almost embarrassed to tell you how long it is. It's coming in at over 300 pages, I think. Now, that ain't no book review.
Now, why do you think, and I'm going to give you my opinion in a second, and people think I'm always long-winded and I talk too much, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's my show. But why do you think, deliberate or not, why do you think this infighting is going on? And that is the question of the moment. What is going on? I don't know if you know this. No, actually, you and I did talk about this a month ago. But as you know, Peniston and Burroughs didn't appear on my show together. Yeah. And I couldn't figure out why. I'll leave that. I'll let that stew for a moment. But as you know, that they did not appear on my show together.
Yes.
And Halt is also stating out there in the background. I don't want to comment on that. He will be on the show in the future, sooner than later. But why do you think this infighting is going on?
Well, number one, Charles Halt has been in a state of disagreement with a number of very important parts of Jim and John's accounts for, probably close to half a dozen years now. Although, if you were to read Encounter in Rendlesham Forest, you'd think that everything was copacetic between these men. Halt has attacked both accounts and the credibility of both Jim and John as witnesses the way functionally identical to the manner that he used to attack Larry and still does, but he's, I think, particularly rough on John, who calls him on a number of these points in sources that I've located that are presented in Deception. And Jim and John, how can I say, I've completely lost my train of thought for a moment here. The train just went off the track.
And you had me on the edge of my seat, and everybody else.
And now you've fallen off the edge. Just repose your question.
Yes, why the infighting, and why, and not only infighting, but some of this is very, very public. This is not a small radio program listened to by 50 people. And when I announce on the show a schedule and that this is the appearance and this is what's going on, and then suddenly I've only got 2/3 of the party, and then a week later the third person comes on, and I'm reading these emails coming in from all sorts of people from, I can't really say, but from their camp, and I'm just like, what's going on here, guys? I'm hearing one thing and I'm hearing this, and I'm getting these excuses.
Yes.
There's something going on. Can't we just all get along? What is going on here?
I'll tell you what I know. This is not what I believe, but this is what I know based on a series of statements that John Burroughs has posted since the publication of the book. And I'm paraphrasing here, although the quote is in Deception, which is, now that our book is published, I can speak about these subjects, without as much, I forget the way he describes it, but it seemed incredibly ironic to me that John felt that he had to wait until after their book was published to express certain concerns about Jim's account, and that includes the whole binary code thing, the timing on when Jim says he signed his statements, and whether or not, and this is the first time as far as I know that John has made a public statement around this, that it is no longer out of the question to him that maybe the whole binary code thing is based in Jim being the victim of some kind of disinformation program set in motion back in the day to make him believe that he had been contacted by time travelers. In other words, the exact same point of view I express in the book, John expresses immediately afterward. Also, the original animus, I really do think, dates from 83, when this whole story broke 100% because of information Larry Warren had given to Larry Fawcett that brought the names to public awareness for the first time of Halt, Peniston, Burroughs, and quite a number of other individuals that played through all of the aspects of these stories and accounts. And that there was initial resentment, and that resentment continued toward Larry for outing these guys in so many words. And although that is always denied, I don't know. I really feel that there is some animus there, and that it began there.
And that, when you think about it, the possibility of disinformation being fed to or different stories, not necessarily disinfo, but different stories being fed to these guys individually set in place in the future, where now suddenly nobody has the same story, nobody has the same memory.
It makes everything look very questionable and scattered, and maybe this isn't such a valuable case. Maybe we better back away.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then suddenly you get one of the actors here going, "What do you mean you don't remember? You were there, dude. I don't remember. I know that you go on with your, but I don't remember. What do you mean you don't remember that? We talked about it." And suddenly, the anger is there, and it also, of course, involves Larry in the same context too as well.
Yeah.
So and this is the whole twist to it. Then you got Halt playing both sides of that fence.
Oh yeah.
He's got to participate in the disinformation. He's got to lie to his loyal troops. And he's also got his career in front of him, and he's also got to play to upper management, and so that throws it all in. And he's got to be frustrated, angry, and embarrassed all at the same time.
I think so. And then to add one more layer to it, Halt continues to tell aspects of the truth, which is variation on his original statement once he retired that whatever him and his men saw that night was not built by any government on this planet. And when he got into a debate with John Alexander, a retired Army officer who has looked into UFOs on his own and feels that there is no conspiratorial cover-up, Halt referred to him as naive, which I couldn't agree with him on more. So, I mean, he's a complex person, and he is caught in this situation from the point of view of somebody who can never be fully forthcoming and can never fully tell the truth and can never, as far as I'm concerned, admit that his treatment of Larry Warren has been off the mark from the beginning, and yet he is a victim too. His being made a public person in this story by my co-author was not pleasant. socially or professionally. When this happened in 1980, Charles Halt was a lieutenant colonel. He retired from the United States Air Force, I think, a dozen years later, and was a colonel. Now, I know enough about how things work to know that you really need to be a pilot to have a better shot at higher ranks, and being a general certainly, and Charles Halt was not a pilot, but that's not a lot of career advancement in a dozen years. And as far as I know, he had a distinguished career, one, where he served with honor. He was a Vietnam vet. And who am I, as somebody who did not serve in the military, to try to, nitpick his service record? I wouldn't dream of it. But this did not help his career. And you can imagine, in the highly macho UFO ridicule culture of the military establishment, it's not like Charles Halt's brothers officers gained more respect and wanted to hear all about the UFO repeatedly. It was the source of joking behind his back and of, the ridicule culture that goes along with this, that's probably even more ferocious in the military than it is here. So he is paid, I can't oversimplify these people or their roles in it. I disagree with him on so many points. To the best of my knowledge, Charles Halt is the only person to ever have gone out of his way to tell a complete fabrication about me in print in another book. And that's going some, and I document that because I feel I have to. And should Charles Halt ever wish to do a comparative voice stress analysis or polygraph test, I would be delighted, and the loser can pay.
I'd just say a cage match. That's where I'm going with this.
I'll tell you one thing. I wouldn't want to play poker with Charles Halt. He is one of the straightest faces. If he is a card player, I'll bet he's a good one.
You know what?
You don't read anything on that face when he doesn't want you to.
Exactly. And one of the comments I was going to make as I was just listening to your answer is he can still speak corporate. He can put that face on, and it's like he's still in the service.
That's right.
And he's still representing country, and he is, you're absolutely right. Poker face, man. And he can do corporate management speak better than anybody. But, and I know that he stands by his tape. And when you listen to that tape, he again, he's corporate. He's matter of fact, and he can represent himself really well. And I know that, and I really believe that everything that's on that tape happened as he tries to represent it, all the way from the Geiger counters to, the marks on the trees, and how he is fascinated and shocked and what he was seeing with his eyes, with the lights and the sparks and the dripping, all of that. I really believe it happened just like it did. And he's got that to back up his story, and that, not his story, I should say, that to back up the incident, because it is very fantastic. Hey, you know what? I want to, you had said that you wanted to take some calls. Let's open up the phone lines. 323-825-5045. 323-825-5045. I just clicked. We are now open for business. 323-825-5045. Also, if you want to Skype in, it's Fade2Black14. Fade2Black14, all one word, and the number 14, all in order. You guys know what to do. All right, so there you go. 323-825-5045. I wanted to go back to one point that you had made earlier about the binary code. Mm-hmm. And you had, and I'm reading it here. Mm-hmm. Do you think, okay, there's a couple of points that I'm just going to read direct. Was about the continuous for planetary advan, the fourth coordinate conduit, UQS, and then there's this the coordinates here. But then they seem to list like everything that is what we care about in ufology or lost civilizations or paranormal, which we have the Great Pyramid in Giza, the Nazca Lines in Peru, the Temple of Apollo in Greece. Do you think that Peniston would have the wherewithal to fake the binary, to write that code down later, and to have it make this kind of sense in binary? I know I couldn't do it.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting you say it that way, Jimmy. It's never occurred to me, even once, that Jim has, in so many words, faked this. I don't know if he is remembering or he is telling every part of the truth as he knows it in terms of the linear progression. Now, to be devil's advocate here, maybe it was programmed into him to remember that the code was downloaded into his head on that particular night in the woods rather than at a debriefing within the weeks following. I can't know that. However, at the same time, I've never thought that he invented it or that he's trying to pass it off as some kind of scam or fooling us. I've always felt either that I'm wrong and it did happen, or my intuition is correct and he has been led to believe, to truly believe this is the case as part of the programming that he was subjected to.
You and I think exactly alike. I mean, and I'm being serious about that. I think that's the only two possibilities. And it's very nearly, seriously, I don't want to be cavalier here, but it's a coin toss. We have a call that just came in.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and take this call. Where are you calling from? Who's calling?
Rancho Cucamonga. This is Lou Sheehan.
Oh, hey, Lou. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
It's good to hear from you.
I have at least one big question, but let me just comment on. My guess is that Peniston didn't even recognize binary code. He didn't remember it from 3rd or 4th grade math. He thought it was just chicken scrawl or something like that. But I'm skeptical that it could be interpreted in today's languaging and our contemporary English, for example. It just doesn't make sense to me that someone from, as he says, from the far distant future would communicate in binary code that's translatable into English. But my real question is for Peter, and I'm just a little frustrated why some of the other witnesses, and I want you to go out and twist their arm, why some of the other witnesses aren't testifying, like a band SAG, or when I say testifying, coming out in public interviews, or Chandler, or a whole litany of other witnesses who just aren't being public, like Larry is, and like Peniston is, and like Burroughs is. And my point really being, why, Peter? Don't you twist their arm? But I know you're too polite to do that.
Yeah.
Why aren't they testifying?
Well, it's a great question, Lou, and I discuss it very specifically in this book, Deception, that'll be available in a week or so. For me, Larry Warren's public life has been just that, public, since he identified himself as who he was and the role that he played in this. And that's going back more than 30 years now. And, I mean, literally you could document the strength and waves and times of the attacks that have come on him, at him, who they've come at from within the UFO research community or from the skeptics community or what have you. And there is a point where he is discussing, working on the very first special report for CNN, which was still a fledgling news network. They've done hundreds of special reports now, but believe it or not, their very first one was on Rendlesham, going back to late 84, broadcast in 85. My only point being here is that if I were involved and I had watched for years in the media as a UFO person who was interested in the subject following Rendlesham, and seeing the decade after decade of disrespect, accusations, derogatory talk that my co-author has been the subject of, why would I ever want to follow his lead, even though I know he's a person of principle, even though I was there too and I saw it happen, even though it's the right thing to do? I'm sorry, I'm a regular person. I'm not that character type that is that very rare person who is what we call a whistleblower, who puts right and wrong ahead of practicality, their peace of mind, their family, and all of that kind of thing. I hope that doesn't sound like I'm trying to simplify it, Lou. I just feel that for these witnesses, and there's a number of them with the guts to, keep at it and try to bring the public into more awareness. One who has been public peripherally for years on and off, Steve LaPlume, who is a member of D-Flight and the security cops assigned that night with Larry. He is going to be speaking out in public either for the first time or for the first time in many, many years at the New England UFO conference this coming October. One could call that a victory in, what we're looking for here for more folks to come out. But the long answer to your short question is, who needs that kind of treatment in their life, even if it's the noble, appropriate thing to do? I salute Larry, but, let's say I was there. I wish him well. I respect him. Send him, my prayers and best wishes. But I've got a family. I've got grandkids now. I've got a mortgage to pay. Do I want to jump into this? And if so, why?
Exactly. Thank you, Lou, for that call. We've got another call that just came in. Who's calling? Oh, hey, caller, hang on for 1 second. I do want to make one comment. In the original, and this is back to Lou's question, back in the day, CNN had covered this. And when CNN, and I'm talking about in I think it was 1985.
Yes.
And now when they did the original coverage on this, plenty of guys came forward, but they were disguised. And
that's another good point.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we discussed that in the book.
Yeah, plenty of guys came forward, disguised the voice, hid their faces.
Yep.
And then they just totally threw Larry under the bus.
He was the only one that went on without his voice disguised, without
and used
face,
his
under his own name, etc.
Yeah, and used his own name. So, and then they said, Larry's out here all on his own. It's like, no, you just had 4 witnesses on. Anyway, hi, caller. Who's calling and where are you calling from? Hello, caller.
Hello, this is Ernie from West Covina.
Hey, Ernie, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. Man, this is like old school Art Bell days taking cold calls. I love it.
You know what? That's, we're just keeping the memory alive until Art comes back.
There you go. You got it. 2 questions, and then I'll take my answers off the air.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Colonel Halt, going from light colonel to a bird colonel, could he be a minister of disinformation? And also, Nick Pope, does he have a pension that he may be concerned about? Thanks a lot, Jimmy. Good job. Catch you later.
Right on, Ernie. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, both good questions. I try not to label people because a label can be oversimplified. I think Charles Halt has occasionally over the years gone out of his way to disinform about this. I'm sure he feels the same way about me, but I would not call him a disinformation agent. He, again, is a complex person caught up in this from a number of points of view. The second question again was?
Well, we'll get to that, Nick Pope's pension, but we'll
Yes.
get to that in a second.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Sure.
But could he be an unknowing disinfo guy?
Anything's possible. Anything's possible. Any of the individuals involved in any way could fall into that category or have fallen into it or potentially be set up to do so in future. I think everybody is manipulatable to a degree, and sometimes we don't know that we are the, unknowing agent for that kind of modus operandi.
Well, it points directly to, and one of the things in Ernie's question is this: was the second that Colonel Halt wrote "lights in the sky" instead of UFO, the second that is what was in the debriefing, the second that was in his memo, by any standards, that is now the story. So that is disinfo from the word go, and he was an unwilling participant, because I think he has said, and I'm sure that he has implied directly and indirectly that is not what he wanted to write. He was told to put those. Am I wrong in saying that? But is that
no? Charles Halt has been on record over the years about the memo, and that it was not written. And this is not a bad thing or a negative thing. It's a standard operating procedure that I'm sure I would follow. His job was to minimize, downplay, and at the same time acknowledge the reality of a truly anomalous, unexplainable event in his one-page report. And I think he did all those things well enough. What he hadn't anticipated was that somebody like Warren would come forward and give information that ultimately would cause the release of that single-page report, which for many years to follow, from 83 on, when that became part of the public record, was the only official document that confirmed the reality of the Rendlesham Forest incident. Now there are quite a number of them in the record, so to say.
The second question was Nick Pope. Do you think Nick Pope is, you know what? Actually, well, the question is Nick Pope staying cautious and changing his story as it fits because he has a pension? But doesn't that apply to just about everybody here, too, as well?
I guess, yes and no. Nick served in a number of positions in the Ministry of Defense for, I believe, more than 21 years, and retired with a pension, as was his due, for his service to the Ministry of Defense and Her Majesty's government. He is now officially retired for several years. He is a resident of the United States and, pursuing his life here rather than in the UK. Do I think that his having a pension affects what he says or doesn't say? I don't know. I do know that there are certain positions in this world, and they are selective for organizations as varied as MI6 to a major corporation, to the National Security Agency, to the Justice Department, to the Ministry of Defense, to the Department of Defense. For that matter, and I say this with as much objectivity as I can, from the mafia to another group that operates outside of the law, that there are certain jobs in this life that you don't necessarily fully, officially retire from, that you are somebody whose principles are still passionately involved in, the principles of the organization that you spent your adult life working in, and simply because you're retired does not mean you are not open either to self-assign yourself future tasks in the service of what you believe, or are potentially open to a suggestion or a request or an order. This is pure speculation on my part, but what Nick Pope did in his book was deliberate, so deliberate in my mind that there is a reason to back it up. And whatever that reason is a footnote for me. Did he choose to do this on his own? Was it suggested to him by somebody higher up? Was it an order? I have no idea. I probably will never know. And it doesn't really matter on a certain level. He said an awful lot of things about me and my co-author in our book in his own way that are simply not true and were misleading and were cued to disinform people about material on the record, factually in undisputed terms.
This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. We are speaking with Peter Robbins. This is Rendlesham Part 4. This is Bespoke Radio for the Masses. The Dark Matter Radio Network. That opens up the phone lines. 323-825-5045. We've got a few minutes left with Peter. So please, this is your one chance to jump in. Everybody has got questions on Rendlesham. Everybody has got questions on Rendlesham. Now, there was a tweet that came in a few minutes ago, and it was about why would somebody need to in the future reference DNA in binary code, and that was the question. And I'm going to throw that back to you because I didn't quite get it. Was there a reference to DNA in the binary code?
Not that I recall, but again, I have to say here, after struggling to keep a very open mind to the potential that I am wrong and that Jim Penniston was indeed contacted by time travelers from our future and given a message of potentially tremendous import to humanity, I'm sorry to say I cannot accept that even as a premise anymore. It's just so far out of the realm of possibility for me. So the question itself is a moot one. I am as convinced as I can be that the basic premise is incorrect and that there is a game afoot, as Conan Doyle would say in Sherlock Holmes, to deceive a witness into understanding, what they've been led to understand. And who wants to take a hard look at the possibility that you have been put through something like this? By his own admission, Jim remembers 14 separate debriefings, 2 of them conducted outside of Air Force personnel, a number of them involving injections of whatever, and those are the number that he remembers. Your heart has to go out to the guy. He can be arrogant, irritating, and very frustrating to me personally over the years, but I do not in any way
one, I'm going to jump in.
Yeah, sure. You understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. But what would be the need? And this is where Penniston, to me, gets all the street cred in the world. But what is the need for 14 debriefings? 2 were by Men in Black type, non-Air Force guys. So for a total of 16 debriefings, what's the need for that if nothing happened? And what say
we don't know.
What say you, Nick Pope, when you said that there was nothing to this? What's the need for 16 debriefings on some lights from a lighthouse?
I know. It's, Shakespeare always gets it right. Methinks the lady doth protest too much. 14 debriefings?
Right.
And, you're saying that whatever happened was of no defense significance. The fact was this poor guy was involved in the event that he had a real experience happen to him, and then we go at him repeatedly over and over and over and over again on the pretext of extracting information or implanting information or just trying to make him as confused as the guy can be and potentially somebody who will take attention away with their sincere, but for the rest of the world, seemingly sensationalistic claims, we are insidious as creatures when we want, when people in power want to deflect, want to have something go out of sight, have something be taken less seriously. I think in that sense, Colin Andrews' epilogue is particularly valuable, and you'll read that in your own time. But Colin approached me because essentially the same kind of attack was perpetrated on him in almost the exact same terms, and it did tremendous damage to his pioneering work with the crop formation or the crop circle phenomena, of which he is truly the lead godfather investigator of. I mean, it's Colin Andrews that created the term crop circle. Right. And forces within the ministry seemingly, I can't say forces within the ministry, but I can say that Nick Pope very methodically attacked him in very much the same way he came at Larry and I in major British press treatment, and it really hurt the work, and it really hurt Colin's position in the work for years, and he makes what I feel is a court-worthy case to prove his case, and ultimately Nick apologized to him. But that's like a retraction in a newspaper for a misspelling in an article the day before. Not many people read the retractions. You know the routine.
Right. Well, totally true, by the way. What about how much of this sensationalism, I should say, is money driven from perpetrators outside of the circle? And I'm not referring to you or Nick. That's not what I mean. But there are certainly dark forces out there dangling carrots. There's that aspect. And then there's the aspect of everybody inside the circle maybe thinking about money. How much of this is driven by money? And I know it's the pink elephant in the room, so I have to ask the question.
That's a fair question and an important one. I think anybody that knows the work and knows something about the history of UFO publishing, and with a very small number of anomalies in their publishing life, people like Whitley Strieber, whose fascinating first book on the subject, Communion, was an international bestseller, and for a period of time made some real money. These events are few and far between, and although, I took the actions that I did, as usual in my life, being more philosophically idealistic than practical, and made sure that I was not going to make any money on this by publishing a free book. There's nothing wrong with, there's everything right with wanting to be paid for your work. And in that sense, I would hope that any author of any good book on any subject does well by it. However, honestly, everybody wants to get their treatment done in, a screenplay, and there's some money there. There's not a lot of money in book sales. However, I think that the financial aspect of this is not the major factor. If I can, it's an example that I give toward the end of Deception. Some people may feel, Robbins is saying that a former MOD official seems to, in his mind, have consciously and calculatingly attempted to deceive people about his and Warren's work and gone out of his way to do it in a dishonest, deceptive way. I think he's self-aggrandizing, and, the case is, for goodness sakes, it's 34 years old. Well, I want everybody to know that in the summer of 1997, which was a wild summer here and in the UK, it was the summer that marked the 50th anniversary of the Roswell event, the Kenneth Arnold event, so a week and a half before, and the so-called 50th anniversary of our modern age of UFO sightings. And the media, print and broadcast on both sides of the Atlantic, went a little crazy for a couple of months. I'm not kidding you. If anybody wants to do research on it, every old UFO documentary in the Sci-Fi Archives and History Channel were trotted out and run. New documentaries were made for that summer's viewing. There was a whole spate of new UFO books, reprints on others. There must have been at least a dozen new glossy monthly or bi-monthly magazines on UFOs here and in the UK, most of them short-lived, and a huge number of lectures, etc. And that summer, it was either published in June or July, the United States Printing Office came out with a big hunkin' book of several hundred pages, like the size of an old-fashioned phone book. It was an Air Force publication, well, a JANAP, Joint Army and Navy Air Force, but it was an Air Force Commission publication, big book, called Roswell Case Closed. And it was several hundred pages of, to put it very politely, absolute nonsense. It was pure crap from beginning to end, but it didn't matter. Half a century after the fact, the Air Force still felt the need to attack the credibility of the seminal UFO case of all times and just pick at that scab one more time, not leave it alone. Again, methinks the lady doth protest too much. So we shouldn't be surprised. The folks who are the secret keepers, the folks who are charged with this information, are not on a tight time schedule, and they're not looking at the challenges involved in taking UFO-related ridicule and using it as a very powerful ongoing tool to just keep the general public, I don't want to say that I take it seriously because people might think I'm a little funny. It's been working great since 1947, and it's still doing very well as a tool to keep it in the can.
And one of the things about that report, and I had gotten my hands on it at the time, and I still have it somewhere.
That's a big book stop of a book.
It is, and I spent a lot of time reading it. I didn't read all of it word for word, but the one thing that stuck out for me is they used the National Accounting Office as the end-all, be-all, because they have the right to procure any document that they request. It must be presented at that moment, and that they had the strength to do that, and it was all based on that, and that's what left a really bad taste in my mouth.
Agreed.
Yeah, and that was it. And now I had another question for you, and I can't now. See, now I just brain farted. Now where that's okay. I'm just going to go in the direction I was in originally, which is back to Nick Pope. Do you think? Now I have to, I'm friends with Nick, and I need to stay friends with Nick, and
Yep.
but I think he will respect my tenacity in asking this question, and I sort of asked it of him, but I'll ask it of you. Mm-hmm. Do you think that it's okay to trust Nick to be honest on one side if he wasn't on? In other words, you either accept what he said as gospel when he was with MOD, okay, or you're accepting as gospel what he is saying now. He can't say both. Only one is the truth. Yeah. And so as a ufologist, and I'm just talking about the people that are going to go out there and buy that book, which side of the fence do they, aren't you accepting a huge leap of faith if you're Nick Pope?
Once again, at the beginning of the show, you discussed my objectivity in approaching a difficult assignment of writing a even-handed review of a book that I had personal issues with, and I did my best. For me, this whole situation, in part, one of the biggest disappointments is I thought Nick Pope was my friend too, but I've realized that he wasn't, at least by the definitions that I understand of that word. And I also know, and I say this with respect, that for some people, there is a higher calling than what they owe their family or their friends. And knowing Nick Pope as well as I do, he is a true British patriot. He puts his country first and the security of the realm before his commitment, I am convinced, to friendships and family. And that is part of who he is. And I can't, make him wrong for that. But he has shown me, indeed, in action, and I say me specifically, in a book, which, again, I've written a book about, that I personally can trust him. And I feel bad about that. I will miss that friendship, but that's a side issue. I think there are other things that you certainly can trust him on. He is, again, a very complex person, and I think sometimes he rather enjoys this conjecture that he knows a lot of people engage in about him. I think when more and more people read Deception, they will have harder and harder questions for him about the question you're posing, and that will not be fun or comfortable.
What do you do when you pass each other at the next event?
Yet.
I know, but at the next event,
I'm damned if I know. All I know is when I sat down to start to read that book in April as a reviewer, reading a friend's book, who had reviewed that friend's book before, other books by that person, and then find out that I am a target of a deceptive action calculated within the book. I've never had an experience before like it, and I hope I never have it again. It was a little Kafkaesque of, you're reading about yourself being attacked in a book that you were hired to review, and the story begins there. And I don't know. I will always wish him well. I wouldn't have been friends with him if I didn't think he was a nice guy. But
I've got a picture of you two together, like it's a year old, and you guys look pretty happy together.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying you guys, went out and.
Well, we've, like a lot of friends, we've always gone out of our way to disagree on certain things over the years. At the same time, you tailor your relationships to different people. I don't have other friends who have worked in high security jobs in the Pentagon, or, I don't have many people that I know in my life that have worked in jobs even remotely like Nick's. And, there's a whole set of rules that goes with that. It's not like over beer they're going to, spill all state secrets to you. It's a subject you can joke about, but it's something that is a divider if you follow that career path, I'm sure. Or paths like that.
Well, like that. I forget the movie. I think it was Godfather. It's not personal. It's just business.
Oh yes, the wonderful line from Godfather. Yeah.
And you kind of have to accept that, and not only with that, but this show that you and I are doing right now. I'm going to see Nick next month. We exchange thoughts, and I just feel a little bit funky about it, and that's why I just feel it's just best that we get everybody together. And I
agree.
And it's going to happen. Hey, look, I got everybody to agree to it so far. The only guy that hasn't is Colonel Halt.
Yeah.
But I like I said, I have the resources. I have everybody on the same page. Let's just do it. And I think that's where we're at. And I think for everybody involved, it would just be great. And before we let this,
I think,
but I'm going to get your answer in a second.
Yeah.
But before we let this get too far away from us, like Roswell, that's a classic example. We're looking, we're 35 years away from Rendlesham now. Yeah. And before we let this get too far away from us, we have the opportunity. Right now, we're all young and fresh. you know, and and just get up, get it done, and put it all out there for everybody for historical sake, for the future. Let's get it documented. Let's get it done. Okay, now what you were saying.
Well, I think that in such a forum, it is a shame that over the years Charles Halt has never written a book, but he has written articles and things, that anybody that would take part in this forum should read Jim and John and Nick's book, Encounter in Rendlesham Forest. I would ask, because there's almost no point in doing this otherwise, that they all take the time to read the book that I've just written, and then anybody else that wants can certainly avail themselves of other sources. But if we are not pledged to have read the words that each other has written, so that we can have an informed discussion based on what we allege that is in common or goes against what the other person alleges, it'll be a waste of time otherwise. And for me, the positive potential, if we want to get out into a stage or a forum and ask hard questions, be asked hard questions, and I never limit the questions coming at me. If anything, I stipulate the opposite. Hit me with your best shot in any interview that I do. Some people are not that way. And again, after Jim, John, Nick, and Charles read Deception, I think they're going to have some problems responding to certain questions that are awkward for them now, and that I back up the reason for the awkwardness with very specific factual information.
Well, you know, that's one thing. I don't want to put you on the spot, but that's one thing that you have always said to me privately. Let's go, Jimmy. Whatever you got, give me your best, and I'll always respect you for that. I'm going to read you this quick email that just came in.
Yeah.
It says, I met Nick Pope only once at a very recent UFO conference, and he looked at me very strangely, even though he didn't know who I was. I felt that there was something that went on there with that exchange, even though we never spoke, and I was 20 feet across the room. I think Nick created this deliberate spin on Rendlesham to confuse the real truth about time travel, because the time traveler I met said we need to wake up right now to the dangers in our world if we intend to avoid great pain and carnage, and not far off in the future. This is the deception here, because this lulls us to sleep. Evil will succeed if good people do nothing. This is my real feeling here. Interesting?
Well, interesting is a word for it. I would never make a judgment about anybody based on an expression on their face and the way that I might perceive it. Also, I would venture with respect to the person that wrote that the person that presented to them, sincerely possibly, as a time traveler from our future, may actually in real life not have been a time traveler from our future, but somebody very much from this time purporting to be a time traveler. And yes, you don't have to be from the future to know or to point out to humanity that we are in an awful place right now. And that message is coming from a lot of people here and now without recourse to having to get the message from time travelers that we are pretty much up the stream without a paddle at this moment in terms of potential weather chaos coming at us, earth changes, and everything else. But I don't think time travelers are involved, again, with respect.
Well, I disagree with you on one thing. I guarantee you I'll be able to read Nick Pope's face the next time he sees me in public, and I'll understand exactly what he's trying to say. And it'll be it's not personal, man. It's all business. But hey Peter, again, thank you for coming on. And
you're so welcome, Jimmy. Our time flies when we're together, and I'm sorry Lowry couldn't join us. I will make myself available the next time that he can, or not. But I want to thank you again for going out of your way, for spending so much of your day for prepping on something that normally you'd have weeks for on a show. But again, within a week or so, this book will be out. I'll have the link to you. I think you are going to be knocked out by the appendices. It is several hundred fully researchable pages, and my feeling is to put it on the public record now and let people then digest it and make of it what they want and come back with even better questions.
Well, there's one thing that I said to you today about the reading of it, which was, you know what? I've got one call that's coming in right now.
Oh, sure.
Let's just grab it. For grins. Let's see who it is.
You bet.
Okay. All right. The last call of the evening. Who's calling?
This is Dino.
Dino, how are you, sir?
Doing pretty well today. It was nice weather. I wanted to just simply say that I read one of the tweeters, interesting program tonight, but this is about the Malibu base and you going out on a boat, and I saw that the boat canceled.
Well, the boat, Peter, he's referring to the Malibu base that the guys here at Fade to Black and myself discovered last month. I don't even know. Have you seen that? Have you seen the pictures of it?
No, I've been so tunnel visioned tying up this manuscript. I have ignored a great deal of otherwise UFO-related news that I'd be paying attention to.
Well, you'll have to check it out. But Dino, the boat was too small. I had to. It wasn't anything else than, and we have other plans that we're working on right now about maybe going out tomorrow. But I wasn't about to go out 6.5 miles into the ocean to look at this underwater basin, something that was too small. Yeah,
of course.
Because I have a show to do next week, Dino, and I think you want me back.
Yeah, we don't want to lose you. I always tell people to be careful who are in this area, because if there is a dark plan, they could take you out like they took out Phil Snyder,
Yeah, absolutely. No. You are absolutely right.
But with paranoia aside, I want to say that you got to move on this. I want to light a fire on you. When you discover something like this and you publicize it the way you have, it leaves room for, like in real estate, for house stage setters to come in and change something. If you don't get out there and see, they could move the stuff out,
Yes, it's a big project. The thing is, Dino, and thank you for the call, okay?
All right.
And you have a big, safe weekend, and I'll go ahead and comment really quick. Thank you, Dino. Is that when you this is 6.5 miles out into the ocean, and it's 1.5 miles deep, and it's a large structure, and this is something that you just don't jump in your buddy's paddle boat and go out there and check it out. But Peter, you should. I would love this is the first show I've done in a month that we haven't actually talked about the Malibu base. We found a structure off the coast of Malibu around Point Dune. And it's 2.5 miles across. You can go to jimmychurchradio.com. You can go to the website and read the articles, look at the pictures. We have found this crazy structure, and it looks like it's a UFO, USO base. It's something. It's an entrance to something, whether it's natural or whether it's man-made, or if it's natural or unnatural. Either way, it's pretty fantastic. And it's a crazy story. So go and check it out. I can't believe I didn't talk to you about it today. Otherwise, I'm catching you a little bit off guard right now. But go watch the videos. Go check it out. There's some mainstream news, press releases, stories on it that will be coming out tomorrow and over the weekend. And I will certainly keep you informed with that. But it's a great story. Go check it out. It's
great.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. When you look at the photographs for the first time and the images, you're going to have a serious, I don't know what I'm looking at moment, and it's really fun. I love everybody that I've exposed to it, and that includes Nick and Dolan and Jim Mars and Tellinger and all the guys out there have had the same reaction. Preston Dennett, Steve Murillo, and Alex Mastreda, all the researchers that have seen this are going, what is this? So, go check it out, and you'll have a good time with it. I'll talk to you about it. All right. I got to roll credits, man. I got to get out of here. Thank you.
Okay.
Wow. What an incredible evening, as always.
Good
Peter.
show.
Yeah, thank you, man, and I'll talk to you over the weekend.
You bet. Be well, Jim, and speak to you soon.
You got it. Thank you, Peter. Have a great night.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. You too.
All right. There you go. Another, how do I say it? Another reason. That's why you come to Fade to Black. And thank you, Peter. Larry, looks like Larry had to work late, and that's just the way it goes. We will get him on next week. I read the email correspondence that I had with Larry over the last few days about him coming on the show. So there you go. It is what it is. And thank you, everybody. Looking at everything that just got posted on Twitter, I think there was probably 300 tweets that went through tonight. I got a bunch of email here in front of me that I didn't get to, but you know what? I'll post it up over the weekend. We will talk about it next week. Thank you, everybody. We had a great week here on the show. Next week, this week, when you think about it, over the last couple of weeks, Courtney Brown, Stephen Greer, Alejandro Rojas, Joe Bookman, Lee Spiegel. We're going to have Lee on next week, by the way. But just a great week here on the show. And it's just, I'm humbled by all of this. I can't even say enough. And so with Peter, look, and I want to just follow up with this really quick. The reason why Peter and I and Larry wanted to come on tonight was just to talk about some of the inaccuracies and some of the things that have been out there about Rendlesham. That's all. Larry Warren is the guy that brought this to the public, not only with the original books that were published in the 80s, but also through CNN. And he is, like we were just saying, he was a whistleblower. And he broke the silence. And he's the guy that put everything out there first. But there are also people that are saying things that Larry said this and Larry said that. Well, Larry says he didn't say those things. And that was the intention of coming on tonight. We will get Larry on next week. Don't worry about it. We'll figure things out. It may have also been a technical issue as well. And that is that. So, again, thank you, everybody. I want everybody to have a great, safe weekend. And, hey, man, no technical hiccups tonight. Can you believe it? You kind of got to love that. Oh, man. Thank you, everybody on Twitter, email. Lou Sheehan called in tonight. Dino called in tonight. All right. Whew, special thanks. Oh, stay tuned. Coming up next is Big Picture Science, followed by After Dark with your host, Brian Alvarez. It's a good live show, by the way, one of my favorites. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamurian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Mark D. Kovar. I want to thank Jason Romero for coming on this week, and Dale. The announcers are Steve Harder and Mark D. Kovar. Music is this guy, Doug Aldrich. Show is intro performed by Spaceboy. And Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Dark Matter Radio Network. My name is Jimmy Church. Everybody have a great weekend. And you know what I'm saying now. See ya.